There's a room you walk into, people still smile, people still talk, people still ask the questions they've always asked. But something is different now. You don't need any of them. Not their approval, not their love, not their permission. And they can feel it before you say a single word. Carl Jung studied this man for over 50 years. He found a pattern that contradicts almost everything modern self-help teaches. The most dangerous man in any room isn't the loudest, isn't the strongest, isn't the richest. It's the one who no longer needs anyone. If you don't understand why this man rearranges every room he walks into, you'll keep handing your power away to people who never deserved it. 3 signs, 1 transformation, and 1 warning at the end you weren't prepared for. There is a stage of a man's life that almost nobody reaches. Jung called it the end of the bargain, the moment when a man stops trading parts of himself for the company of people who were never going to keep him. Every man begins his life in what Jung described as the relational web. He needs his mother to feel safe, his father to feel worthy, his friends to feel real, his woman to feel chosen. This is not weakness. This is biology. Every animal that lives in a pack carries the same code, but somewhere along the line, the web stops being a shelter. It becomes a cage. The man wakes up one morning and notices something cold in his chest. Every relationship in his life has a price tag. Every friendship costs a piece of his honesty. Every love costs a portion of his ambition. Every approval costs a fragment of his soul. Jung wrote, and this is the line that cuts deepest, that the man who must be loved by everyone will be ruled by everyone. Most men live their entire lives ruled. They don't see the leash because the leash has their own name on it. Jung described one of his most haunting cases in his clinical journals. A businessman in his 40s, surrounded by people, loved by his family, respected in his city. He came to Jung saying he felt nothing inside, as if he had been performing his own life for an audience he couldn't even see. Jung asked him a single question. What would happen if every person in your life stopped giving you anything tomorrow? The man went pale. He couldn't answer, because the answer was the truth he had spent 40 years avoiding. He had no self underneath the relationships. He was a man made entirely of other people's approval. Jung treated him for 2 years. The work was not therapy in the modern sense. It was a slow, surgical removal of every dependency the man had built into the foundation of his life. Jung called this process individuation. Then, a few men, quietly, almost without warning, begin to do something the herd cannot forgive. They start to need less, not in a bitter way, not in a wounded way. In the way a wolf, after years of being fed scraps from a hand, finally remembers it knows how to hunt. Jung observed this in patient after patient, always the same trajectory. The man stops asking, the man stops explaining, the man stops chasing. And the moment he does, the people around him sense it like prey sensing a shift in the wind. Because a man who needs nothing cannot be controlled by anything. And every system the herd uses to keep men in line, guilt, shame, withdrawal of love, social punishment, depends on one single thing: the man wanting them back. Take that want away, and the entire machinery collapses. The first sign is the most invisible. He stops scanning rooms for reactions to himself. Most men, even the ones who claim confidence, are constantly checking. Did she look? Did he respect that? Did the room laugh hard enough? It's a kind of psychological theft that runs in the background of every interaction, energy leaking through 1,000 small holes. Then one day, the leak stops. The man speaks and doesn't measure the silence afterward. He walks out of a room and doesn't replay the goodbye. Jung called this the withdrawal of the gaze. The eyes turn inward. The audience inside his own skull goes dark. And the predators in his life, the ones who fed on his glances for approval, start to starve. You may have noticed this in yourself already. The room you walked out of without checking who was watching. The silence after your last sentence that you no longer needed to fill. That was sign one beginning. The second sign is louder, but only inside him. There is a constant, low-volume begging that lives inside most men. Be liked, be wanted, be invited, be remembered, be enough. It plays under every action. It rewrites every choice. It is the soundtrack of the unindividuated man. Then the volume drops to zero. He stops sending the message that wasn't going to be answered. He stops adjusting his voice for people who never adjusted theirs for him. He stops shrinking. This is when his face begins to change. Not visibly at first, subtly. The eyes go still, the jaw settles. The shoulders stop rising to meet expectations he didn't sign up for. Schopenhauer wrote that solitude is the only state in which the soul learns its true voice. He wasn't talking about being alone. He was talking about this, the death of the inner beggar. Think about the last message you didn't send, the one that would have shrunk you, the one your old self would have begged into the void. You didn't send it, and nothing died. That was sign two. The third sign is the one nobody can fake. He starts walking into rooms, and the room moves before he does. Conversations slow when he sits down. People who were laughing too loud suddenly recalibrate. Manipulators who used to test him stop running their scripts. This is not charisma. This is gravity. Jung observed that the individuated man emits something the unconscious of other people detects long before the conscious mind catches up. Animals notice it first, children second, manipulators third. The herd notices last and reacts the most violently, because the herd has a name for the man who needs nothing from it. It calls him cold, distant, arrogant, changed. All four words mean the same thing. We lost our hooks in him. You probably recognized at least one of those signs in yourself. Maybe two, maybe all three. If something in your chest pulled while you were listening, that pull is the door. What comes next is what's behind it. Once a man crosses this threshold, three permanent shifts occur. Jung tracked all of them in his clinical work. The first shift is in his standards. Time becomes sacred to him in a way it never was. He no longer gives hours of his life to people who weren't going to give him minutes of their respect. Friendships fall away, some violently. Most just quietly stop happening because the energy he used to spend chasing them now goes into himself. He grieves less than he expected to, because Nietzsche was right when he said that man only mourns the cages he was using as decoration. The second shift is in his ambition. It stops needing witnesses. The man who needs no one builds in silence. He doesn't post the milestones. He doesn't announce the goals. He doesn't perform the journey for the audience that abandoned him when he was struggling. And precisely because he stopped performing, his work becomes dangerous, real, compounding, unstoppable. Schopenhauer noticed this centuries ago. The man who works for himself outpaces the man who works for applause by a factor no audience can ever provide. The third shift is the most disturbing. He stops needing to be right, not because he became passive, the opposite. He's so certain of who he is that the validation of being declared correct by other people becomes almost insulting. This is what Jung called the integration of the self, the point at which the man and the silence inside him become the same thing. And the herd, sensing this, does what the herd has always done. It tries to drag him back. The accusations begin. The cold messages. The friends who suddenly want to talk. The lover who appears with a softer voice. The family member who needs something, anything, to pull him back into the role he used to play. None of it works, because the man who needs no one cannot be released by people who only knew the version of him that was begging. So picture it, the same room, the same voices, the same faces that used to know exactly which buttons to press to make you defend, explain, beg, return. They press them again. Nothing happens. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't even feel the need to leave the room dramatically. You just look at them, and they feel it before you've moved a single muscle. Something is gone from the air between you. A leash they didn't know they were holding has fallen. They will spend the next year telling themselves you've changed for the worse. They'll call you cold, distant, different, lost. They are right about one word. Different, you are, and you are never going back. Jung wrote that the man who completes individuation becomes the one who can no longer be possessed. That is what waits on the other side of needing no one. Not loneliness, not bitterness, not arrogance. Sovereignty. The kind that doesn't have to announce itself. The kind that walks into a room and rearranges it without permission. The kind that turns every person who tries to hook you into proof of how far you've already come. If you got this far, something has already begun. You felt it during sign 1. You felt it harder during sign 3. Most men will close the tab and go back to the life that needs them to keep performing for it. A few won't. If you're one of them, the next video on this channel is the one you're looking for. It's about what happens after the herd realizes you're gone, and what the man who has crossed this line builds in the second half of his life. Watch it when the room is quiet. And don't tell anyone why you're watching it.